Right.
Lake Martin Sports Roundup, covering all local and area sports and teams, with your host Scott Hardy, and your phone calls at 256-234-6221, presented by Bland Insurance Group. Big on savings, big on service, big on community. If it's sports in the Lake Martin area, we cover it. The Lake Martin Sports Roundup, right now.
Good Tuesday evening, everyone, and welcome into the Sports Blitz Lake Martin Sports Roundup, live here in location at JR Sports Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Alexander City. I'm your host, Scott Hart, and I'll be joined by Brett Pritchard this evening. And it's a very cold and blistering windy Tuesday evening, but hopefully we'll be able to provide some entertainment to you from 6 to 7 tonight. As I said, we're here at JR Sports Bar and Grill, 256-329-2328 is the number to dial in, and they can take care of any of your delivery needs as well as catering. Brett?
Yeah, it's always entertaining when we're up here. You're talking about maybe provide entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, this is entertainment at its best, and I don't know why you wouldn't tune this in.
You know, it's me and you, so I know sometimes,
never know what you're going to have, just like we had Saturday. Scott, unfortunately, bringing you Lake Martin Sports Roundup this Tuesday night. Last Tuesday, we were hyping up all the teams in this area that were headed off to play in round two. And unfortunately, not a one of us in this area came back with a win. I mean, Benjamin Russell, a hard-fought game against Spanish Fort. We'll break that game down. Dayville travels to UMS Wright. That game was 7-7 for a while. UMS Wright ends up winning that game 21-7. They continue their win streak against Dayville. And then St. Paul's, a team that we had up here last year that we should have beat. We had a chance to beat and kind of let it get away from us. They put it to Central Clay 38-7. So tough losses for all three of our local teams here. Reeltown travels up to Fife and gets shut out. Jackie O'Neill's coaching career at Reeltown is over. So just a tough night all the way around for the teams in this area. And you look at Tallahassee, they fall to Jackson. All the way around, and then Opelika right down the road. They lose to Saraland in overtime, 27-21, after getting down 21-0. So, my goodness, I thought we might have one that would squeak through and something to talk about, but it was a tough night for all of our teams in Central Alabama, Scott, in round two.
Well, it's been kind of par for the course, especially for the south part of the state. They traditionally do extremely well once it comes to playoff time. They're going to be the teams that represent the South. Spanish Fort going for 3 out of 4, but you look at a situation where Benjamin Russell really thought that they had an opportunity to win the game. Dayville as well coming in, kind of feast or famine for Dayville, but the teams that they had beaten in Leeds and in Reeltown and in Tallahassee, they showed that they were capable of beating big-time teams, but neither Dayville or Benjamin Russell were able to take care of business. And you mentioned Tallahassee and Reeltown, and the one that was most surprising to me, I think, was Reeltown getting shut out against Fife, but I think that just lets me know that Fife really may be a legit football team, because if they were able to manhandle Reeltown the way they were, because traditionally Reeltown can stay in most games because they can control the clock, but if they run up against a team that is as talented as Fife was defensively, kind of limits what they're able to do.
Yeah, and again, to see Jackie O'Neill go out, and he's been a mainstay in high school football in this state for a long time and has a legacy at Reeltown, and he'll be missed. It'll be interesting to see who fills his shoes down there at Reeltown, continue their winning ways. But Benjamin Russell on the road again to Spanish Fort. Hopefully hopefully next year we can get those teams to come this way. And you know how you do that? You got to win your region. You know, Opelika did land the home game against Saraland. They didn't get it done though, and got off to a horrendous start. Got off to a 21-0 hole, and you just can't do that against a good team. Now they fought back and tied it up, forced overtime, but you put yourself in a situation where you've got to be almost perfect. You got to be almost perfect offensively coming down the stretch, and they almost pulled it off, but just didn't seem to have enough gas in the tank in overtime. Had it 1st and goal to 5 after a pass interference in the end zone, and still couldn't cash it in. So tough break for Opelika, tough break for Benjamin Russell. Obviously, Davil down the road with UMS Wright. We're going to talk about all these games, Scott, as we move on through the program, and then we'll set up what's going on in the state because the playoffs still continue. We'll kind of set the brackets in round 3. We've got some great guests coming up here tonight. Some wrestlers from Benjamin Russell will be here. Benjamin Russell opens up their basketball season tonight against Sylacauga. So, we've got them. Hopefully they'll get off to a good start tonight against the Sylacauga Aggies. So a lot going on here in this program, Scott, and I know you got Riley coming up here with you next segment to talk about some of the wrestling. But, football ends for this area, but we have a lot going on in this area. The winter sports really vamp up now.
Yeah, and I think that you have a situation where both Benjamin Russell and Davil, you expect them to have a pretty good basketball season as well. Benjamin Russell coming off a disappointing tail end of their season, had some really quality players, weren't able to put it all together. Some injuries cost them some quality wins, but I think behind some players like Pac-Man and Hugh Johnson and having a sophomore coming up like a Timmy Lawson, there's some pretty good talent on the basketball team, and Davil's always known for their talent as well. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up with some of those representatives for both of those schools as the show progresses later in the season.
Yeah, and you can always call in on this program, 256-234-6221 to be part of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup program. And it's always a lot of fun to dive into these winter sports and see what happens because, again, a lot of great teams in this area, in this county, in the Tri-County area that we have here that have, good basketball and women's and men's wrestling teams, the whole 9 yards. So always a lot of fun, but it's always sad when our teams get put out in football, Scott, because it just seems like yesterday we started the season, it flies by. But let's talk about Benjamin Russell real quick football-wise. Nothing to hang their hat about 3 consecutive 10-win seasons. And, we talk about that. It's kind of the benchmark in football. When you get to double-digit wins, it's kind of like a 20-game winner in baseball. Pitching them, it's kind of like winning 30 games in basketball or 25 games in basketball. It's a goal that you want to get to. And 3 consecutive years, this team's won 10-plus games. So, Tyree at quarterback, I thought took over and grew each and every week and got better. This junior class will come back and be the leaders next year. Of course, we'll have some guys that we missed, and that happens every year when we graduate some players. But we'll return a talented team next year, and the future's bright. Would love to win the region next year. And have the playoffs come through the Sportsplex. Have that come through the Sportsplex. Of course, Spanish Fort will have to travel this week. And usually when you win that region, you get the first couple of games at home unless there's an upset, and then you have to go on the road in round 3. And they'll have to travel to McAdory. McAdory's undefeated, but they have squeaked by 2 or 3 teams now, and they'll have a very tough Spanish Fort team coming in. I like Spanish Fort in that. I like Spanish Fort Saraland rematch in round 4. I mean, you better get ready for that one. That's going to be one to watch. But they do have to go take care of business, Scott, up in Birmingham to be able to have another shot at Saraland.
Yeah, and I'm anticipating that being a great matchup between those two. But speaking about Benjamin Russell, that junior class, as you said, is one that I'm really excited to see how they go through the senior year because I've watched them grow. And you talk about Tyree, and we'll have a wrestler up here who's also on the football team, Daniel Bland, who represents that as well. But you do lose players like Pac-Man and Q and your 2 starting linebackers. So there'll be some holes to fill in. But had you told me that this year's team would have gone 10-2, 9-1 the regular season in 6A, I would have been very satisfied with that.
Take that every single year.
You look at it, and I really think that they have the right formula, and especially going for next year, I really think that because they have such a superior talent at quarterback and that the skill positions around them, they'll be just fine.
Well, if you're winning 8-9 games on a regular basis in the regular season, you're always going to be in the mix for a state championship. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, so that's what you got to accomplish first, getting your program to that level where you consistently win 8, 9, 10 games, and then you get into the playoffs and anything can happen. But everybody you play in the playoffs obviously is a good football team because they wouldn't be in the playoffs if they weren't. And that's where we are with the program now. I'm excited where Danny Horn has this football program and continue to do that. We'll talk about Dave a little bit later on, a heartbreaker for them. Just cannot solve the puzzle of UMS right. They just can't do it. And, went down and gave a valiant effort, but come up short again, and their season ends in disappointment, just like most everybody's season does. There's only going to be 7 teams that are happy at the end of the year in a few weeks, Scott. Everybody else is going to be disappointed they didn't make it all the way and finish up. So, but Richard White and Dave will have an outstanding program down there. They'll rebound. They'll reload. They have been doing that for 5 or 6 years now, and they'll be back challenging again for next year. But we're going to take a break here on the Lake Martin Sports Roundup show, Scott, and then when we come back, let Riley Pike come up here and talk about this upcoming wrestling season. Have some wrestlers here as well that'll join you and talk about this season coming up, because this one of these guys, this team last year had a tremendous season, and we've got a few state champions on this team, and that'll be challenging again to repeat. So we're excited about that. So stay tuned. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup presented by JR's right after this.
All right, you're out. All right, come back to you in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining the Late Morning Sports Roundup Show, live here in location at JR's Sports Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Alexander City, as we are each and every Tuesday night. I'm your host, Scott Hardy, and right now we're joined by a frequent guest of the program, wrestling coach for Benjamin Russell High School, Riley Pike. Riley, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Well, Riley, we'll start with it. Last season, for the most part, from an individual standpoint, there were some state champions, and there was I guess, celebration from that side. But from a team standpoint, I know you didn't really reach the goals you'd like to. So can you recap a little bit about how last season went?
Okay, last year, like you said, we were real young and kind of real thin in a lot of places. We didn't have a whole team as far as filling every weight class. But we had a lot of really good individuals. Took 6th to state, ended up 3rd in the section, and 6th as a team in state. We had four state placers last year, 3 of which were finalists, and 1 state champion. We get all of our state qualifiers back, except one, Deion Maxwell. He was one of our finalists from last year. But we do get our state champion back at heavyweight, and then we bring another finalist back, Cassius Culpepper. He'll be at 195 this year.
Absolutely. So as you get ready to enter this season, this will be the first year that the wrestling program will be in 6A, I guess, under the new classification. Will that change anything otherwise as the teams that were in it last year?
A few. They're going to add some guys to some teams to our section, like Oxford, Stanhope, Wetumpka. But for the most part, it's going to be pretty recognizable for us. A lot of the same faces. Only big difference is Pinson Valley has moved up to the north, and they won our section last year, so that's going to help us a little bit.
Who do you look at it in the section that will create the most, I guess, competition for us?
I think our section kind of sets up for us to have a pretty good year as far it goes. There's a lot of strong teams in the north section, so being down in the south, that's going to help us out because we're young and kind of experienced at the same time this year.
Absolutely. We're here with Riley Pike, wrestling coach for Benjamin Russell High School, wrestling Wildcats, and you mentioned we'll talk about some of the participants on the wrestling team, but you mentioned Daniel Bland, who was a heavyweight champion for you last year, who's a football player as well. I know we've talked about it, but how does that transition work now? Does he lose weight now, or will he stay up? How does that go for him?
Well, with Daniel, 285 is heavyweight limit. He came in about 270, so he's fine. He doesn't have to lose any weight or anything like that. Normally he will drop probably 5 to 10 pounds just of the work difference from what football and wrestling is, and kind of getting in wrestling shape as opposed to football shape. But, he came in there this week, and he's, a vocal leader and then really been getting after it as far as workouts go. And, like he hadn't came off the mat since last year.
Yeah, and I want to focus on something here, too, from the youth program. I know that there were some new mats were purchased this year for you guys, and so I know that there's a lot of effort being put into the youth wrestling program. How will that affect the foundation of the program as a whole from Benjamin Russell High School all the way down to the youth level?
Well, the wrestling program here at, Alex City, we've kind of made it, an inclusive kind of family. Coach Campbell, his son is in the youth program, so he's there every night helping out. And then this year we brought the middle school in to practice with us. So we're making it more of one unit. And I think that's going to help us grow a lot too.
Absolutely. And so we got a couple more questions here with Riley Pike. Who are some of the members of the team that you're looking forward to, I guess, be your leaders and carry it? Because I know you've got some guys returning, but I guess some names that you're looking as leaders and some up-and-coming names that Wildcat fans can look forward to hearing and seeing.
Well, obviously, bringing back Daniel Bland as the state champion, you're expecting him to win 45, 50 matches at least this year. Still competing for another state title. Cassius Culpepper finished 2nd. Looking to him in that 40 to 50-plus win range, looking to be a state champion. Tay Robinson was in the semis last year, so he'll be another one that I think he took 4th. And some of those guys have gone, so he should be in the state championship picture. T.C. Coley, or Thomas Coley, T. Coley, he'll be back. He was a match away from placing at the state tournament. Deloney, Aaron Deloney, he was our 120-pounder last year, state qualifier. And then those are kind of the faces that you've heard a lot about last year. And then this year, some new guys that we've got. We've got some really good lightweights that we haven't had in a long time. Some seventh graders and a few ninth graders that are really, really good that, could compete and compete at a high level. And then we've got some guys kind of in our middleweights and around in the 30s, 30 to 40 range that are, I think, can make some noise. They move really well, new to the program, but really athletic. We've got really good numbers this year, and from in the past, we've had guys come in and then they quit because of the workload or something like that. But we've got 40, 45 guys in the room right now and hadn't ran off a single one, and so that's great. And so I think that's going to continue to help our program.
That's great to hear. On the number standpoint, well, I know the team has been working on a fundraiser, doing a bingo style thing with Jake's. If you'd like to elaborate a little bit about that and how people can get involved and participate.
Yeah, Jake's for the last 2 months has been running a charity bingo. Last month was for breast cancer. This month is for the wrestling program. And on Thursday nights, you come out and he runs a bingo. So it's $1 to play. The first 7 or 8 are for Jake dollars, so you get some kind of gift certificate if you win. And then the final one is the jackpot, and they call out around 50 to 60 numbers, and you have to fill up the entire bingo card. And the winner from 2 weeks ago took home $1,300. It's $1 to play, and like I said, it'll be this Thursday, and then for Thanksgiving, they're going to move it to Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And they're going to draw until somebody wins. So for sure, try to get out this Thursday, next Wednesday to help us. It's a good cause. It goes to the team.
Absolutely. Well, that was Riley Pike, wrestling coach for the Benjamin Russell Wrestling Wildcats. We'll go ahead and take another break. More of the Late Morning Sports Roundup show live here on location from JR Sports Bar and Grill right after this.
All right, you're off. One minute.
1 minute.
What? I ain't doing all the talking. I like you doing all the talking, Dave. I like you, man. You got a nice voice.
Thank you.
I like your voice.
Thank you.
30
Seconds. That's half a minute. You can count a little bit. That's one half in fractions. Seconds. 10.
Three, two, one. Take it away.
Welcome back to the Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show, live here on location at beautiful downtown Alexander City at JR Sports Bar and Grill. 256-329-2328 is the number for them, and they will take care of any of your delivery or catering needs. And you can also come in here and eat off the kids' menu if you bring your kids in here. If they have their uniform on or any of their youth league apparel, they can eat off the kids' menu for $1.99. 256-234-6221 is the number to dial in for this show. We just had a great guest and Riley Pike, who's the wrestling coach for Benjamin Russell Wildcats. And right now we want to welcome in a couple of the participants on the team, Cassius Culpepper, and who it says Cassius with a K, and Daniel Bland, who is a member of the football team as well as the wrestling team. So, guys, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Mr. Culpepper, we'll start with you first. Coming back as a senior on the team this year, I'm assuming, is that what?
Yes, sir.
Senior on the team this year. How do you feel your presence needs to be felt as not only a senior leader, but your performance on the mat as well?
I think I just need to leave it all on the mat and just show these boys what to do, and just try your best on the mat. Just work hard.
Well, last season I know didn't necessarily go the way you would have wanted to. You made the state final competition, but didn't win it. I know obviously you want to do that, but can you give me some of your individual goals as well as team goals for this season?
I want to win state. That's one of them. I want to break the takedown
Record.
Yeah, takedown record. That's it. And just work hard in the wrestling mat and just don't leave nothing on the mat. Just leave it all.
What's been the off-season condition, and what's that been like under Coach Pike and Coach Campbell?
Pretty tough.
Pretty tough. Can you give me a little details about it? What maybe it's one of the hardest things you'll have to do?
I hate monkey rolls. Monkey roll Monday. I hate that.
Monkey roll Monday.
We need to cancel that.
Absolutely. Well, we'll move over to Daniel Bland, who just got finished playing a little football, moving over to the wrestling mat. Daniel, coming in as the reigning heavyweight champion, what do you think your expectation levels are for this season?
I mean, my first goal is I got to win again because I can't have a big head about it, and I can't go out there and wrestle like I just won the match already. And my second goal is I want to be undefeated this year because I've really been trying to work on that goal ever since I've been wrestling.
Yeah, and as I said, you did win it last year, but new to the wrestling mat and to be able to do it so quickly, I think that's impressive. But what do you think you've grown so far from last season to this season? I know you really hadn't had a match per se, but can you tell the difference in what you've been doing from last season?
Well, I've been in the wrestling room for 2 days now, and it's really intense. It's shorter practices, but they're more intense.
Yeah, and speaking of intense, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the football team. Didn't necessarily go the way you guys would have wanted to, but to go 9-1 the regular season, finish second in the region, win 10 games for the third straight year, that's unprecedented here at Benjamin Russell. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the season as a whole and I guess what you'd like to do going into the next season.
I mean, we have a good team and all, but we just gotta stay focused on I don't know what happened to us that night, the Spanish Fort game, but I feel like we wasn't focused enough. I mean, it was a long ride up there, and we just had to get focused.
Yeah, and I guess going into the next season, you have a lot of talent coming back. What's the feel of the team right now as you guys get ready to head into your senior season?
I mean, I feel like we can do it because nobody expected us to do it this year, so we just got to come out and do the same thing next year.
Absolutely. Well, we want to appreciate you guys joining the Lake Martin Sports Roundup show, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the mat this season. Good luck on another great season individually as well as the team. We'll go ahead and take another break. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup show live here on location at JR Sports Bar and Grill right after this.
Thank you. How do you remember all that?
You're off.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show. Brett Pritchard, Scott Hardy here for about 25 more minutes on this show as we lead up to Sports Blitz Live. Me and Luke will be on live from 7 to 9. And
hold on, I'll envy you there. Well, I don't envy you there.
I was about to say, if you envy me, you go right on over.
4 to 9 is a long time to be talking. So,
yeah, well, it's just a trooper.
When you're the best,
sometimes you
got
just
to do that.
Got to take one for the team. But I'll be with you all night tonight. So if you ain't thrown up by now, you have many more opportunities to do so by the time I sign off. But anyway, we'll be over there talking high school and college football and basketball that's now started over on the side for Alabama and Auburn. And, Auburn Friday night looked pretty good. This last night didn't look so good. So Alabama pulled them off a massive win against Western Carolina. So neither one of them really off to the best start, but we'll see as things progress. And there for a while, it looked like Anthony Grant may drop that game. And we do have Benjamin Russell basketball tonight for all of you listening. If you want to go out, support the Benjamin Russell Wildcats in the basketball game. The varsity will be in action here. Jeff Hines, I talked to him last night. They'll be taking on Sylacauga. So exciting start for basketball. Can you believe where in the world has this year gone, Scott? I mean, we're looking at next week being Thanksgiving, and then we'll be at the end of the year, and we'll be in 2015 before we can turn around. So it has just flown by this year. This football season flew by faster than I can ever remember. And I know we say that every year, but this one really did. I mean, it seemed like yesterday we were talking about the Jamboree games and talking about we got 11 weeks to play 10 games and all that good stuff, and now we're round 3 of the playoffs.
Yeah, and especially if your team's doing well, it really goes by fast, either from the high school or collegiate level.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
some
I really think
years
so.
When you have those real bad years.
2012, because, I mean, we've been around, I'm glad we're no longer in that shape as a program, but when we were 1-9 and 2-8 a couple of those times, I mean, that's tough to do. So I'm glad to see that we're no longer there. But when your team's successful, I think it makes it just go by faster, because I'm sure there's some teams that were sitting 2-8, and when the season they couldn't wait for it to end.
Well, I mean, it was the longest season in their history. Let's go down and talk about the playoffs, Scott, and we'll pull up the matchups, and we'll start in 1A. Brantley at Billingsley. That's going to be a good matchup there. Billingsley. The battle of the Bulldogs, the Billingsley Bulldogs, Brantley Bulldogs. It'll be interesting to see if Brantley can improve to 13-0. Maplesville is the team I think you got to watch. They're 11-0. They'll be at Notasulga. Man, they are just mauling people. That'll be a round 4 matchup. Unfortunately, that won't be a state championship matchup. If Maplesville and Brantley move on, that'll be a semifinal matchup you'll watch. The other side of the bracket, Hubbardville at Raglan and Marion County at Cedar Bluff. And when you look down through there, Hubbardville, Marion County, Maplesville, Brantley, all those teams are very accustomed to being in the championship game. So that's your 1A bracket. 2A, it'll be undefeated Elba, who was in the state championship game a couple of years ago against GW Long, who's 11-0. Flomaton at Washington County, the defending state champs in 2A. Washington County sitting at 12-0. That 5 team that beat Reeltown is 12-0. They'll be at Tanner 10-2. Tanner and Washington County seem to make it a common practice to meet up in the state championship game. They'll have another shot at that in a couple of weeks if they keep winning. Woodland at Ranburn, and this Woodland team and Ranburn team, Horseshoe Bend, very familiar with both of them. So was Reeltown. So those two teams in their region still alive. They'll play each other to see which one moves on. Anything stand out to you in 1A and 2A there, Scott?
Really just hate to see that Maplesville and Brantley will have to play each other before they would have to play for a state championship. You hate that because it looks like those two teams are the top 2 teams in 1A. But from a 2A perspective, really think a team like Tanner could beat a Fife, but I think those are probably your 2 most talented teams at that area.
Let's go into 3A. Montgomery Academy has had a tremendous year. I mean, you haven't really heard a lot about them. They're 12-0, and they'll take on Dale County, and they're 12-0. So that's going to be a great matchup in round 3. Gordo at 12-0 will be at Opp 9-3. Glencoe 12-0 at Colbert County 8-4. So you're looking at 4 12-0 teams still in 3A. Then Madison Academy is 11-1, maybe the favorite out of all those teams. and they'll be at Walter Welborn 8-3. So Walter Welborn last year was a Champions Challenge team. Madison Academy's been they're the defending state champ. So, man, there's some great football teams left in 3A.
Yeah, I think Madison Academy is a team that will do the loss on the season comes to lead. So I really don't see another team that can really beat them. But Walter Welborn does have a nice segment of roster space.
Munford will go up to 4A, and Munford's had a tremendous season. They're 9-3. They'll be at Leeds. That's going to be a tough matchup for Leeds, Scott. This Munford team's big for a 4A team up front. They like to pound the football. They can throw it. Got an athletic quarterback. That'll be a fun game to watch on Friday night. UMS Wright, who defeated Dadeville, they'll be at Strong. Strong was a Champions Challenge team. They played Walter Welborn in that Champions Challenge last year. Cordova, we know about Cordova. They have had a long line of teams to make it to the state championship game. They'll be at Haleyville. And then Deschler, which may be the story of the season, losing their head coach the way they did tragically, a self-inflicted gunshot wound there. Just a tragedy for that community. They continue to rally. They're 11-1. They'll be at Fayette County 9-3. I like them to move on to play the winner of that Cordova-Haleyville game, and I like them against either one of those teams too, Scott. So we could be at Jordan-Hare Stadium in a couple of weeks with this Deschler team, and you want to talk about emotional. Yeah, that's going to be an emotional situation.
Everybody who's familiar with the story obviously has to be pulling for them, even if you don't have ties to the community or not. That's got to be troubling. So, excuse me, I think Deschler really has an opportunity to face the winner of that Leeds. I forgot who Leeds is playing.
Yeah, Leeds is playing Munford.
Munford. Okay, the winner of that game, I'm sure that's who.
Well, you got
play.
UMS right there.
That
bracket's hard down, man. 4A now. So we're getting down to the cream there in these classifications. We'll move over to 5A, and before we take our next break, 5A is Greenville at Jackson. Jackson defeated Tallahassee. BC Rain, man, we got to do a shout out right here on this show. Our very own Tella Stone from right here in Alex City wins against Charles Henderson and blows them out. Not even close. A blowout win. They'll take on St. Paul's now. They'll have their match there. St. Paul's the number one team in 5A. But you know what? Tella Stone has that BC Rain team at 500 on the season. They've gotten better each and every week, and they'll be in round 3. I mean, how great is that? So they are in the top 8 in their class. So not much else you can say there. On the northern side will be Gunnersville at 12-0. At Pleasant Grove 10-2, and East Limestone 12-0. At Madison County 9-3, and that's your 5A bracket. But Tella Stone, congratulations.
I think that may be the best story of the playoffs outside of the success that you're hoping for from Deschler. But to take that team, you beat Demopolis in the first round, an upset there, and then come back with a convincing win over Charles Henderson. So that's
I have no idea what just happened there, but yeah, I'll finish that for you, Scott. And you scared me and everybody else in here to death. I don't know exactly what just happened, but BC Rain is 6-6. A couple of teams in the playoffs, like Colbert County, with a 4-loss record, but nobody has a 6-6 record. But you can't really look at records at this point. That Charles Henderson team was in the state championship game last year. They went to BC Rain, I'm sure feeling like they were just going to go in there and win that game, and they got throttled. I mean, the game was not even close. BC Rain put 50 points up on Charles Henderson, so it was 21-0 at halftime. They came out and finished them all. So congratulations to BC Rain, and it'll be fun to see if they can give St. Paul's a football game Friday night. And they've got a lot of momentum, and they're familiar with St. Paul's. They're in that region, Scott, so I'm sure St. Paul's wasn't really expecting to play BC Rain in this round, but now they'll have a surprise, and I'm sure Tellus will throw everything but the kitchen sink at them.
Well, that's the thing. When you look at those Mobile schools, they have to play each other throughout the season. So when you look at the win-loss record, you see who they lose to. So I'm sure they lost to a couple of their teams in the region.
They did.
Were in the playoffs, and they lost to Benjamin Russell. So the games that they lost are against playoff teams. So they were well-versed when it came to competition. And I think you see that every year. Somebody like a LaFleur comes in and they have a chance and they disrupt some things. But good story there in BC Rain.
Let's take a break here on the Lake Martin Sports Roundup show. When we come back, we'll finish up the show, and we'll finish up with 6A and 7A as we get ever closer to Jordan-Hare Stadium in a couple of weeks for the Super 7 now for 7 classification. Stay tuned. More of the Lake Martin Sports Roundup show right after this.
You're off.
Welcome back to the Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show presented by JR Sports Bar and Grill. Only a few minutes left in the Lake Martin Sports Roundup. I'll head over and join the Crimson Crusader, Luke Robinson, for Sports Blitz Live. But looking forward to spending a couple hours with him talking high school and college football. As Alabama rightfully deserves to be up there in the top four. Probably will be at worst two, if not number one, when this comes out here in just a little bit. But Scott, we'll move on and finish up with high school football. We'll go to 6A, and it'll be Saraland at Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. It was Hillcrest knocking off Carver Montgomery. Saraland knocking off Opelika. So Opelika falls in overtime 27-21. What is it about the overtime games here lately? You know, last year, in missing an extra point, because the teams that missed the extra point win the game. I mean, this year, Benjamin Russell misses the extra point. We win the football game. Last year, St. Paul's 20-14. They missed the extra point. They win the football game. This year, Saraland scores first in overtime. They're up 27-21. They miss the extra point. They win the football game. So, I mean, it's like score first, miss the extra point, and you're going to get out with a win.
I think it provides a false sense of security because you're like, okay, all we have to do now is score and we can get in there. And I think it puts added pressure on you to do it. But on the flip side, I think the defense plays a little bit harder too because they know they can't give up the score. So
I think you're right. I think you're
it probably
right.
plays a lot to it. But, again, that is kind of weird how it's played out.
Spanish Fort will be at McAdory. It's the first time they've had to travel in 2 years. So about time for them to get on a bus and go somewhere, as far as I'm concerned. They'll be at McAdory, and it'll be a game between a 12-0 McAdory team and 11-1 Spanish Fort team. I don't want to hear anything else about a Tyler Johnson-less Spanish Fort team. It don't matter. The guy that they've got in there now is the real deal and a tremendous athlete. Clay Chalkville, who I feel like is your favorite in 6A, really haven't been tested all year. They have scored an inordinate amount of points. They're 12-0 at Decatur, 9-3, and then Florence 10-2 at Gardendale, 8-4. And Florence was where Jamie Dubose was and left them in a great situation. Florence really had not been competitive ever. I mean, as far as over time, and he built that program up. And they're right back there in the final 8 teams in 6A. Some great matchups. I think it'll be Saraland, Spanish Fort, Clay Chalkville, and Florence in the semifinals. We'll see if that plays out, Scott. But Saraland, Spanish Fort. Saraland will be looking for revenge. That was their lone loss on the season, and you'll be trying to find a way to get back and win that football game. Moving into 7A, Prattville at Foley. Prattville, surprisingly, defeats Jamie Dubose in Phoenix City. It was a close game the first time. Phoenix City won that game, but his old team not kind to him this time. They eliminate Phoenix City, and it'll be a Foley team that destroyed Fairhope is their opponent. So Chad Anderson has had a lot of heat down there since he took over at Prattville. If they win this game and he's in the first ever 7A championship game, I think if you're a Prattville fan, you need to just back off. He's doing a good job.
If it turns out to be Prattville Hoover in this first championship,
it's kind of almost fitting.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. But you mentioned Jamie Dubose, who had the job at Florence, left, goes to Charles Henderson, then makes a drastic change, then goes to Central Phoenix City. So all three of those teams he would have been affiliated with did make the playoffs. But Central Phoenix City was the team I thought was going to be the team to dethrone Hoover. But it looks like now Prattville has an opportunity if they're able to get through this tough sled here the next couple of weeks.
Gadsden City at Hoover. Hoover is 10-2. They start off 0-2 on the season, but they lost to a team out of Miami. And, of course, they lost to Valdosta, Georgia, which is Rush Probst now. So he pays back his old team after they come and beat him last year. I'm sure he got a lot of pleasure out of that. And but Hoover since then has looked like a runaway train. Josh Niblett has got that program right there again on the cusp of going to a state championship game. Any way Gadsden City can pull this out?
I don't see it how they can do it, but they do have so much talent there. And I want to get your thoughts on this. And I know we never like to spread rumors or anything like this, but there has been there has been talk of possibly Pat Silva not being there next year and Josh Niblett being possibly
at Sanford,
the Sanford coach. So I just want to see what you thought about that, or if you'd heard anything.
I don't see that being a bad hire at all for Sanford if that's the case. And I know Coach Sullivan has endured a lot of medical situations, and he's fought cancer, and the neck surgery and everything that he's had to endure. I'm sure it's taken a toll on him. It's just a matter of time, in my opinion, before school. If not a cut on Joey Jones, not a cut on Bill Clark, but if those two guys can go coach at the next level, I definitely think Josh Niblett can coach at the next level. And I think being in Birmingham and being there in that area, I think be a good fit for him. I think it'd be a good fit for Sanford. He's familiar with the landscape. They've got a good program up there. He knows, I'm sure he'll be an outstanding recruiter. And I think you could see that happening very easily.
I was just getting it. We never like to spread anything. I
just
it's not
really rumors, speculation.
It is speculation. I just wanted to get your thoughts. And I'm with you on that. I think he is the top coach in the state, and wherever he goes.
Well, look, here's the deal. If they win another state championship, what else is there to prove? What literally else is there to prove at Hoover? I mean, I'm serious. I mean, he's done everything he can do at that program. And then he's also lost a couple, right there at the end. He lost to Daphne. So, I mean, if you're Josh Niblett, you win another one. I mean, it just becomes another. I hate to make it so trivial, but it's just another dust collector in your case over here for him. Again, not to trivialize what it means to win a championship, because there's a lot of schools that never do. But it just speaks for him. My point is where he is in his career. What more can he accomplish at Hoover High School? And I don't think there's much left. But he will have a couple of tough games to get through to be able to do that again. Scott, we're up against the close of the show here at JR Sports Bar and Grill. And again, unfortunately, no teams left in our area to speak of in round 3. And that's uncommon. Usually we have a couple of teams left and fighting, and we'll close out with Benjamin Russell and Dayville. You know, Benjamin Russell, you know, a couple calls in that game, and I know that Spanish Fort did an outstanding job blocking up front, but I thought our offensive line did too. I thought both offensive lines controlled the line of scrimmage. We had a touchdown called off, pulled off the board with a man downfield, which I thought was very, very, you know, close. It was controversial. My opinion, even if it had been Spanish Fort, you don't throw the flag on that play in that situation. I mean, it's don't get yourself. He's 7, 8, 9 yards downfield. Absolutely throw the flag. But if you're 3, 4, 5 yard range right there, teeter tottering on going over the line, you just don't take that chance. And that was a momentum killer for the Wildcats. And then we fight back and cut it to 9 in the second half, and they try Rodney Carroll. It's the only time they threw at him all night, Scott, and he picked it all. They get Q Johnson for a personal foul late hit to the quarterback, which, again, was bang, bang. Right as he was throwing the ball, Q was blitzing, he was hitting it. You know, let players make plays, let teams make plays, and see how it pulls out. And then at the end of all that, Scott, it was just too much to overcome.
Yeah, and again, Benjamin Russell fought back because they were down 33-14 or 17, and could have easily let it get out of hand.
Sure.
Fought back, make it 33-24, but never could quite overcome the early hurdles that they had. But hats off to this coaching staff and the season that they had. I really look forward to seeing what's going to happen next year with the talent that's coming back. I think they have great personnel in the backfield with Chase Burton there, as well as Jacoby Maxwell, as well as Tyree Gray at quarterback. So I really just want to see get back to spring training. I'm already ready for Benjamin Russell's next season.
Well, as fast as this year went by, we'll be at football season again. So, again, tough break. And then Dayville, with UMS right. You know, we were getting score updates. And when it was 7-7, I mean, Dayville was definitely in that ball game, and I thought maybe this was their year. This is their year to get over the hump, and UMS just proves to be too much on the road. And, again, I'm hoping that we can get these Mobile teams to travel north. I know UMS came up here and won against Dayville last year, and it was right at the very end of the game. I mean, seconds to go, they do find a way to punch it in and score. But I'd like for Dayville and Ben Russell and Reeltown, all of them, to win their regions and force these teams to come through their stadiums. And I mean, that's the advantage. I mean, that is the luxury of winning your region. You get to control where the teams go. I mean, you're going to have to travel sometime during the playoffs, but you're going to have most of them come through your stadium. So not saying it would have been a different outcome, but Spanish Fort having to take a 4-hour trip instead of us playing us on our field could have been a difference.
Well, Daniel Bland talked about it. He said that he didn't necessarily know if the focus was really there. He said that the long bus ride that day, he said you could just tell that some of the players had lost their focus a little bit. And you never want to blame it on that. But for a high school kid, I mean, that changed.
Let me pose something to you. And look, I don't coach at that level. They understand. It would almost be worth leaving the day before and spending the night. I mean, I don't know if that's the answer, and I'm sure it's, that's just part of it. I mean, if the players are saying that, and it wears on you. You ride and you eat, and then a lot of times you just you feel like you're worn out from a ride. I mean, sometimes I know that sounds silly, but St. Paul's did it last year. They came up and spent the night in Auburn, got up and practiced, walked through at Auburn's facility, Auburn University's facility, and then drove over to Alex City, and they looked pretty good. They were ready to go. So. I don't know. That's something to entertain. Hopefully, I don't have to fool with that. If I didn't have to go back to Spanish Fort again, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. So Absolutely. I'd love for them to come up here, Scott. But that's going to do it for the Lake Martin Sports Roundup Show. We appreciate everybody out there listening and watching every week. And, again, congratulations to all the teams on a great season. I know it was not the way you wanted it to end, but there's next year, and we got some great football coming your way next year. But we'll be diving into the winter sports now, Scott, on this program moving forward. So we're looking forward to it. For Scott Hardy, I'm Brett Pritchard saying good night, everybody. We enjoyed it. We hope you have. See you in a few minutes on Sports Blitz Live.
All right, you're off.